Welcome back, everyone, to this pathway training series. If you're new to this and haven't seen any other videos, I'd kind of pause and go back one. This is the second video in the list. The first one kind of covers off the introduction to analytics and how best to use it and how best to navigate yourself through it. This one's going to focus very much on fund research. Now, analytics was built many years ago, and it was built as a fund research tool, a fund selection tool, and 100% of every single feature in the system back then was just around selecting funds. Now, since then, we've added many features on top of that, mainly around portfolio analysis and portfolio reporting, and they will be covered off in the subsequent videos after this one. But I just wanted to pause and spend maybe 15 minutes or so going through some of these core features of the system that collectively allow you to better research and better filter funds, both single manager and multi-asset. You might be an advisor that just analyzes and searches for good multi-asset funds. Great, then these features are just as relevant for that process as they are for an advisor that still uses single manager funds and packages them together into your own portfolio. So to start off, again, let's start off with some of the basics and then just move our way along. These are four funds that I found already, maybe using analytics to run some research. I found some good solid ESG funds, and I just want to run some quick analysis on them. Before I do that, every single one of these funds has got a little fact sheet icon, which is a good place to start. The fact sheet's all going to look fairly similar in terms of the data that's plugged in, and they have a number of tabs along the top. The first tab is going to give you the basics of the fund, all the ESG, EET data we're now collecting, including the ESG ratings at the top, our own ratings, quant ratings, risk ratings, charges, who the managers are, a bit more information about them, links to fact sheets. So the fact sheet will be the fact sheet of the manager, tell you a bit more information about who they are and their career. Performance tab, that shows you how well the fund's done against sector. Both performance and volatility. MiFID costs and charges details. Breakdowns quite popular, so that shows you the top 10s, the sectors, the regions, the asset breakdowns, what that fund actually invests into. And you'll find a lot of funds now in the industry are actually providing full disclosure in terms of every single underlying stock. So although, yes, traditionally you've always seen the top 10, that only equates to a quarter of the overall fund. Well, that fund itself actually invests in about 55 underlying lines of stock. And if you want to take a look at them, click on the little tab above it, and it loads all of them up for you. So I'd say particularly relevant for ESG clients who are probably a bit more concerned now about the actual underlying companies they're investing into. And I've now got a true kind of transparent window to see what they are exactly. And I can export that and send that to the client if need be, branded in my logo. That's a pop-up window, so I can close that down once finished. When I want to send this to a client, just either summary fact sheet, it's probably the most popular. It aggregates everything into one neat page, really dumbs it down and just shows the most important parts about the fund. Or if you wanted to give all 7 pages, you can click on export detailed fact sheet and it will give you a 7-page PDF for that one fund. So every single fund has got one of those. In addition to that, if this is going to be a fund I'm going to be rolling with over the coming years, things will change. The ratings will go up or down, the charges will go up and down, the fund size will go up and down, the performance will go up and down. So if I wanted to get an alert as and when that happens, just click on this little alert icon. Then a very simple setup from left to right. On the left-hand side, I could start off with performance. So I could say, okay, my tolerance is maybe 15%. If that fund goes up or down by 15%, let me know about it. Same with kind of charges and ratings. If they go up and down, let me know. There's plenty of different options you can mess around with yourself. And then documents, if there's any particular update on a KID document or a fact sheet. But my email address will be pegged down there. I can save as many of these as I like to the system. I'll be alerted through the system when I log in, but equally I'll be alerted via that email. Every single time an event is triggered, I'll be emailed about it, and I can then make a decision whether I make the client aware of that or whether I need to do a bit more research on the system. You'll also notice this every now and again. So some of the providers provide us with more information than just kind of your bog standard fact sheet and KIDS documents. And these are maybe PDFs or sales brochures that they find it quite tricky to disseminate across the market. Well, instead they just disseminate it to us and we plug it into analytics for you. So you'll see that every now and again, and it just means there's more information about that fund and more things that we've managed to source that you can access through analytics. Again, specific to these particular funds. So what happens now if I just wanted to run some research on them or compare them? Well, I could start off with some charts. So I could just throw that into a performance chart over 5 years and generate, and it does exactly that. We'll just take my 4 funds and compare them. Incidentally, I can go back to specific days. So I could go back 3.5 years ago if that was relevant to the case I was working on, and or include a base amount. I don't want this to be in percentages. I want to pretend that we invest £100,000 or euros or dollars on day one. So I can turn that into a pound chart. I could also mess around with other charts like scatter charts and bar charts that are quite popular. We'll probably cover those off in, again, subsequent videos. A nice place to start if I just want to compare a handful of funds against one another, in my personal opinion, the best place to start is here, fund comparison. It's a report that's purposely built to compare a handful of funds, and I don't need to change anything. I just need to hit generate, and it does exactly that. It will take my handful of funds, it puts it into a report like a parade, and it puts them side by side, and it shows me all the core differences and similarities between them. And maybe this is a reason why I'm going to be investing in one over the other. Maybe this is a reason why I'm going to be investing in all 4 and build a portfolio from them. At the very bottom, it also shows me the correlation, the asset allocation, sector split, but also the correlation, how similar these funds are against one another. And again, I can PDF that and make that available to a client. If I just wanted to start accessing some raw data, you can mess around with tables as well. There's lots of different tables that we've plugged in to analytics that we've built ourselves. So you can see there's quite a few here, but popular one is probably a performance table. And I can take those 4 funds and just throw them into a performance table. And it always gives me exactly what I've requested. 4 funds, performance table. What do I get? A performance table of 4 funds with all the performance figures along the top. You can build your own table. We'll get onto that in a couple of minutes. I can now quartile the color code, so add color-coded quartiles. So at the top here, I could then throw in a quartile. Now, it quartiles them against each other. It's not saying that Artemis Global Select has been the best fund out of its sector. It's saying because it's blue, its first quartile, it means it's one of the best funds out of the 4 we're looking at. So if that was blue all the way across, it's just simply saying it's the best fund out of the 4 we're looking at here. If you wanted to flip the logic and quartile it against its sector, you've just got to be mindful when you're creating a table. There's something called ranking method. Flip it to full sector and generate. The table will look marginally different because it will now divide them into their sectors. One of those funds is in the commodity sector. 3 of them are in the global sector, of which there are 11 funds in the commodity sector, 375 in the global. Now, when I apply the color coding at the top here, it color codes it against the sector. So now it's saying that bearing fund has been 3rd quartile, 2nd quartile, 4th quartile against the 11 funds in that sector, as opposed to the 4 in the table. So these are very quick and easy ways of taking a kind of a selection or handful of funds and running some quick analysis on them. Okay, that's great. But what about if I want to broaden that out and actually look at an entire sector, like the global sector, like a multi-asset sector, etc.? Well, a couple of things to consider. Let's wipe the slate clean. Let's just get rid of these 4 funds on the left. If I now come at this from a slightly different angle, I'm going to go and grab a sector. Let's mess around with the UK oil company sector. Add that in. Like a fund, a sector also has a fact sheet. So I can click on that. Again, a good place to start. It will show me everything I need to know about that sector. The best funds, the worst funds, the most volatile, the least volatile, how many funds there are in the sector, average risk, who the members of that sector are, the breakdown, kind of average asset allocation, sector split, etc. But it's quite a static table. There's not really much I can do with it other than maybe select some of the funds I want to take a closer look at, and that will then just ping them back to my main screen. But what about if I want to run my own research? Okay, that's sector fact sheet's quite good as just a broad overview of the sector. What I want to do is I want to take that sector and throw it into a performance table. Now, I'll just do that again on a within table option. Now, you've got to be careful because analytics is incredibly specific. It creates exactly what you've asked of it. And all I've asked for is sector average in a performance table. So I've got a performance table of the sector average. I don't actually want that. I want to look at every single fund within that sector. So I can then crack it open with that little tick box there, click on generate table, and by virtue of selecting that other tick box, it's looking at the members of the sector. So now I've got 252 rows of data, and I can, again, these tables are dynamic, so I could perhaps resort over 5 years, and it shows me the best to worst, worst to best, And again, I can start color coding the quartiles. So against its sector, the 252 funds, which ones are consistently good or bad. And to really loop around with where we were a couple of minutes ago, I can go and grab a couple of these funds, a handful of them, and then flip them straight into a fund comparison report from this one place. And here we go back to the fund comparison report where I'm comparing side by side. Or actually another nice little feature, you can whip that into a chart, a line chart. Now there's two problems with this table. One, it's only looking at performance, which might be okay if you just want to look at performance, but clearly most people want to look at other things as well. And also I've got 252 rows in the table, so that's going to take me quite a long time to sift through this data to work out which is best and which is the worst performing fund, etc. So two ways of remedying this. If I wanted to filter the funds first to get a more kind of narrower range of funds to review, that's what filters are here for. So instead of coming at this from sector angle, which still can be useful if you're looking at small sectors like a property sector and Asia Pacific sector that probably only have 11, 12, 13, 20 funds, I might just grab that sector and throw it into a table. For this sector, that's possibly not that useful because we're looking at, again, 250 odd rows of data. So instead of going at it from a sector angle, I can go straight into fund filter, click on new, and load up a brand new filter. And again, I go focusing on single manager, but you could do this for multi-asset as well. I'll point out that the filter is useful for that. But just to make this consistent, let's stick with UK companies. I can go down to fact sheet characteristics because at the moment, that universe I want to search on has that many funds in total. I clearly don't want to look at 3,200 funds. So I'm going to ask for it to only look at UK all companies and add that across, and there we go, there's our 252. Okay, well, out of those 252, don't show them to me unless they've done at least 4 crowns and above in terms of our crown rating. It has to have achieved at least second quartile over 3 and 5. If there's anything you're struggling to find, that's why we've got quick find. Okay, where's the OCF filter? Don't know. Let's just type in OCF at the top, and there we go. It minimizes everything else, finds it, and says, okay, these funds have to be below 1%. Let's see what that does. Add that across and we go down to 10. I can keep going. You've got ESG characteristics as well, which is quite popular. If I'm just simply looking for a multi-asset fund, I won't add this now because clearly that will just go down to 0. Under asset class, I could say, look, I only want to look for funds that have mixed asset, and that would just look at mixed asset funds. So that's one I'd start with and then start layering in these other filters on top. Other couple of popular ones as well, certainly from a UK perspective, you've got platform availability. So I can say, okay, well, I only want to look at funds available on the Aviva platform. So as I said, just keep going. And a quick tip, you can save these, so you don't have to keep rebuilding them each time. Click on the little save icon at the top here and save that as my UK filter or my mixed investment balance filter or my ethical filter. There is an ESG and a passive filter you can search for. And once you've saved it, or even if you haven't, if you click on the show results, it shows you the funds that have met your criteria. And again, those neat little green arrows, I've got a catch-all one at the top, so you can click on that and it pings all of them back to the main screen. So when I come back to this main screen, as if by magic, there's my 10. I've gone from 252 down to 10. What do I want to do with those 10 funds? I want to throw those into my performance table. And now, rather than, again, getting a long list of funds, I've got a much, again, narrower range. Second problem, still looking just at performance. Don't want that. I want to look at all the other things that I'm interested in looking at. Maybe that links to my filter results, the charges, the ratings. Okay, I know they're all 4 crowns at least, but I'd like to know the difference between 4 and 5, etc. I know they're all under 1% OCF, but there's a big difference between 1 and 0. So if you wanted to define your own columns up here, and again, there's a tip for this separately, but just to quickly cover this off, under the reports tab, there's a little feature called custom table. Click on report builder, which is basically building a brand new table. And it loads up a separate screen, a separate build screen, where again, similar to the filter, you're building from left to right. Okay, well, now let's visualize what table we want to look at. Okay, when I look at that data, I want to look at some performance for sure. I want to look at 1 year, 3 year, 5 year. So add those in. Now, this is incredibly flexible. So I could do cumulative, discrete, user defined, annualized. You've just got all the different rolling as well, rolling periods. You can mix and match. You can add whatever time periods you like, add them across to the right. What about ratios? Okay, there's loads of ratios I could look at, but I'm only really interested in volatility over 3 years. Thinking about some other filters, crown rating, OCF, I can add those in as well. And again, if I can't find it, like OCF has couldn't find it before, just type in OCF and it finds it and adds it, and just keep going. Just lastly, again, platform availability. I might not want to filter on it, but I want at least the system to give me a tick and a cross, whether it's available on 7IM Aberdeen, etc. And it will just do that instead as opposed to filtering. And save it. Save that as, I'm not going to save this one because I've got one already, but fund research table. On save, what does that mean? It means that back on this main screen, over on the right hand side under report layout, all of the save tables you've created are going to be in here. And just think of it logically. You don't need to build a massive table each time. You could just build a table that's the crown rating. You call it a crown rating table, and it will just show all the crown ratings of any fund you pump through it. So these can be as small or as large as you like. I've built my fund research table here. So when I throw those 10 funds against it, just click on generate, it does that. It kind of, again, remedies these two problems I had. Beforehand, I had a 252 deep table just showing me performance. Now I've used a filter to get me the best 10, or for what I feel are the best 10, and then a table that sucks out all of these different bits of information that I'm interested in taking a look at. And again, same logic as before, I can quartile the color codes, color code the quartiles against each other, or specify it against the sector, and it won't just color code the performance, it will color code everything else as well. Now, just to show you how you can automate that a step further, if you've gone and built a table and you've gone and built a filter, then the next time you do, as you can see on this short video, that's only really maybe have taken me 5 or 10 minutes to build, but the next time you do it, shouldn't take you any more than 10 seconds, because if I wipe the slate clean, clear active list, if I just reset everything, now next time I need to go and find a decent fund in a particular region, I can go and open up my saved filters. I haven't used some of these for a while, so bear with me. There we go. This is a multi-asset fund. So I want to find a decent multi-asset fund that's deemed risk profile 3, add that in. What do I want to do with that filter? I want to throw that against my fund research table and generate. So as you can see, because I've been able to save these things along the way, I can just smash them together whenever I like. And every single time I smash them together, it's redoing it again. So it's going to go off and redo the filter as of today. And it's going to find me all of the funds that have met my criteria as of today. And it's going to throw that directly into my table. Give that a few seconds. There we go. So as you can see, it's given me a table that shows that there are 90 funds as of today that met your criteria. Even if you would have built that filter 3 years ago, doesn't matter. Just redoing it as of today, there are 90 funds that met your criteria, and these are all of the fields of data you require. And again, you can PDF that data, but you can very quickly, if those of you that use Excel, you can quickly export to CSV, and it take that data and just dump it into CSV for you to start running some clever stuff in there. Just lastly, when it comes to fund research and fund analysis, I quite like to go up to this reports tab and just focus on this feature for a couple of moments, market movements. It allows you to look at the most popular funds in the market, or maybe potentially as well the most unpopular funds. Again, this only works for UK accounts and only works on unit trust and OICs. But if let's go back to that UK sector. Actually, you know what? Let's mix it up a bit and do multi-asset. If I'm looking for a very popular multi-asset fund, if I go to a multi-asset sector and say, look, over the last year, there's different reports you can run off. In fairness, there are 6 of them. The ones that tend to be used the most are these 2, though. Basically, what are the most popular funds? Which are the most unpopular? If I just look at the ones most attracting money, what it does, it just gives you a league table. It says, look, these are all the multi-asset funds in that particular sector, and it's rating it on the most popular based on inflows. So it's saying, if you look at the very top one, SJP Balance Managed, last year the fund size was that. This year it's nearly 8 billion. Why? Well, the performance has affected nearly 1 billion of that increase, but the rest must be inflows. So it's ranking it based on inflow. So you can very quickly see if you have got some favored funds, a panel, or some funds you're using within a portfolio or model, you can see very quickly what's hot and what's not. Because the other report, I won't bother doing it here, but you can say shedding money, and you can see which funds are suffering the biggest amount of outflow. And the performance might be fantastic, but they're still suffering quite a lot of outflow. And therefore that's why it would be ranked high. So I think we'll leave it there. That's, for me, if I'm using analytics or want to use analytics as a fund research tool, and to go back to our beginnings and why we built analytics, those would be the core features that I'd focus on. Looking at filtering, looking at building your own tables, looking at data extraction, fund fact sheets, etc. But as ever, I always say at the end of these videos, any questions, any issues, everyone has an account manager that should be looking after them. So reach out to them. On the left-hand side under contact us, that's our help desk. Contact those guys if you get stuck, and also chat with an expert in the bottom right.